Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have an upload that will really open a lot of people's eyes. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and guys, it definitely matters. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? So today's upload, I want to talk about a couple of things, and then I'm going to share a couple of encounters. The first thing I really want to talk about is how devious some YouTube channels are and how they will lie in order to get views and trick everyone in this community. And those channels are bad for this community because we are already looked upon as kooks. I'm not a kook. I know what I saw in 1994. Many of you know what you saw in the woods, in your car, on a dark road, wherever you may have been. You know what you saw, and it wasn't just a figment of your imagination. It was real. So then you have these channels out there that are BS artists that just want their views. A lot of people say that about me, but I really love this community, and I try to bring the truth to everyone. The truth that I know is the truth. I can't vet a person that wants to share their encounter on the channel. I can't, because I wasn't with them. I know what I saw. I know that what I saw was real because I was there. I wasn't with anyone else that had an encounter. Therefore, I can't vet it. It's not a very hard thing to figure out. But photographs, videos, and things like that are easily to vet and easy to figure out. There had been a photograph that a channel used and said, "This is from CCTV." I probably got 100 emails. And I said, "Guys, it's fake." One person argued with me, telling me that I was fake and I was the biggest piece of crap and this channel was true. Whatever. I'm going to share with you the real photo that was taken from a video game. I'm going to actually share the link with you too. So, really quick, here is the photo in question. Now, a lot of you are probably like, "Whoa, I know that photo," but it was in black and white, and that guy wasn't there. Well, that's because the channel that aired this as trail cam real footage is a liar and created it. What they did was they probably brought it to Pixlr or whatever Photoshop they wanted to use, cropped the man out, turned the photo black and white so it looked legit, and said, "Hey, this is real Dogman footage. Please subscribe to my channel. I am real." Well, no, you're not. You're a liar. Bottom line, you lie. Why? Because you want views. You don't care about the community. You don't care about what people like myself and all of you guys out there who really want the truth care. This person didn't care. And the people that push these photos, it's not just one channel. It's a whole bunch of people that do this crap. And I'm sick of it. I really am. I'm fed up, and it's time to call these things out. Debunk photos, debunk videos. That's what I am going to do from now on while researching these accounts, because I just want the truth. And the only way to really get the truth, like, here's a perfect example. Paranormal investigators that are the real deal. Excuse me, I gotta get a drink of coffee. The real deal paranormal investigators, right? What do? They go into a home open-minded, saying, hey, this person says this home is haunted. I'm not going to believe it until I see it. So I am going to debunk everything, or try and debunk everything. They're going in as a skeptic, even though they are a true believer of the paranormal, right? But they didn't live in this home. They didn't have experiences in this home. And let's say you're hearing this whooshing sound, and oh, well, that could be explained by a window being open a crack and hitting a piece of sheetrock or paneling in your basement, But when you can't find those things, then it's real. You've tried to debunk everything, but you can't. So, guys, the link is in the description. The link is going to be the pinned comment, which means it's the first comment in the comment section. I have no reason to lie to you. I was blown away when I really was like, whoa, wait a second. This is a video game. My oldest daughter brought it to me 2 days ago, and she was like, Dad, look at this. And I was like, wow, thank you. I knew I recognized the photo. I couldn't put to where I recognized it. It's obviously a fake the first time I saw it, where it was black and white. But then I got heated because we are already looked at as kooks. I'm not a kook. You're not a kook. We all know what we saw. I know what I saw in 94. James Darkwaters knows what he saw. Y'all know what you saw. All right? The bottom line is this community is too fragile to have liars and cons in it. And unfortunately, and I'm not saying all YouTube channels like this, like my channel, are like that. There are some great channels. I consider myself a real person because I really fight for this community. And I'm not just saying that because I say it. I'm saying it because I know what I saw was real. And I don't know a lot of other channels, but judging on what I see of them, I can say there's a couple real ones out there, but the majority of them are not. There are some great ones out there that will really fight to have the proof because they saw something, they had an occurrence. And then there's just ones that realized, hey, YouTube is a paycheck. I am dedicated to finding these answers. I don't know what I would be doing right now with my life if I didn't have such a passion for this. So this is the real photo. Please don't be hoaxed anymore, guys. If you see something, really dig in. Don't fall for it. And I cannot say 100% everything that I put on my channel is real. And that's why I say I leave it up to you guys. Because I don't know. If I took the photo, like my daughter's boyfriend took that photo, I consider that photo 100% real because I know him. I know he's not a hoaxer. I know he's petrified to go outside of his home at night because that cemetery where they had their encounter is directly across the street from his home. So I apologize if I offended anybody. That was not my intent. I just wanted to give you guys the proof that you were hoaxed. Don't fall victim. Don't be a lamb. The government wants us to be a lamb. Maybe they're putting these channels out there to make us even more vulnerable. Don't be. All right, I'll calm down a little bit. I apologize. I wasn't trying to be all worked up. I just get really upset. And the biggest reason is because when I first started the channel and no one knew who I was, and I named my channel what I did, Dogman Encounters with Jeff Nadolny, people were like, oh, you're a fraud, you're a fake, you're copying Vic, you're doing this, you're doing that. Yet nobody really took the time, except the real ones, you guys that are still with me, to get to know me, get to know that I had an encounter, get to know that I truly back this community as long as I feel that there is the same belief and push that I give. You know, I don't know if that made any sense, but I respect all of you guys who have had encounters, and even the ones that have not but love the community either way. And I'm sick of getting called crazy kooks, this and that, and then to have people that supposedly are in this field like we are, only to find out that there is an alternative motive to it. That really drives me bonkers. So I apologize. The next part of the upload, I really want to bring something to question. I want to bring this question up, okay? And I had this interesting conversation with a buddy of mine on the phone last night. Dogman. Why do we call it Dogman? Because we were actually talking about the upload I did yesterday, the Van Drimeny theory, the scientific theory. And I said, why do we? Luke and his family called them walking wolves. So far, there has been no accurate DNA present in front of us to give that name any kind of solid backing. They look like a dog because they have a muzzle. They can run bipedally and quadruped, but how do we know what their genetics are, and why do we call them that? Is it just because that's what someone said, hey, a werewolf looks like a dog, let's call this a dog man? I don't know. I'd like to know where that term came from. And it didn't come from the Michigan Dogman song. That name, that term Dogman had been kicked around a lot longer than the song. That's the truth to that, honestly. But I don't know where it came from. It's an interesting name, but does it fit? Do we know what the genetics are? We don't. I know that when in a couple of days, I'm hoping today I find something out, or tomorrow we find something out. If there is canine DNA, that will be an amazing proof. That will just be solid proof to that name. But, the whole Van Drimeny thing, what if they're not? What if they're not? I actually saw in a non-subscriber, and I asked this guy, I said, he said, I'm not a subscriber, but I listen to your channel. And I said, well, why don't you subscribe? No answer back, but he said they resemble baboons from what Van Drimeny was putting. Yeah, they do. A jacked baboon. Did we ever think that? It's very crazy. It's a very interesting term, but why are we so quick to call them that when what I saw honestly didn't resemble any kind of werewolf movie that's in Hollywood? It had a snout, but it didn't resemble the American Werewolf of London. That's for sure. And I have my own views on that myself. But it's very kind of complicated because I've only heard maybe 20 different people share what they saw, resemble kind of what I saw. And then there's the other people that have said that it looks like the Lycans from whatever, the Underworld, American Werewolf in London, and maybe there's two different kinds. I don't know. I've never been a fan of the chart of the variant type 2, type A chart from someone who never saw a Dogman. I kind of think that's kind of strange. You never saw a Dogman, but you're going to create a chart. Good for you. You know what I mean, guys? I mean, come on. But it's just something I want you guys to think about, because this person said, a baboon. And I was like, I sat there and I told my friend, and I told him the email, and he said the same thing. Why isn't he subscribed? And I said, I don't know. But my friend was like, dude, he goes, if there was some kind of freak mutation on a baboon, that would really kind of resemble what I saw. Actually, the person I was talking to was the driver of the car in the experience that I had in 94. He saw two of them run quadruped across the street. He never, ever wanted to even think about these things again. He stopped hanging out with us after that experience. So just something to kick around. I thought I'd bring it up because, I don't know. It's not talked about a lot. These things are not talked about. Scientific examinations or theories or whatever aren't talked about enough. Sharing encounters are just like, it seems to me that the channels that have the most respect are the ones that have the most violent encounters. Yet all they're doing is they are either having a ghostwriter write this story for them, or they had someone that actually had an encounter and come on and share it. But they're not doing anything other than having a person share their encounter or paying for a ghostwriter to write it. There's not enough channels out there that really want the answers. They just want to share the experiences. Dark Waters wants answers, just like me. That's why he created dogmancams.com. He had an amazing idea. Unfortunately, it was brought to its knees because of lack of listening to what he and his dream was. But it would have been something amazing if he had his hand in it more, to be honest with you. He's a very brilliant person, and he's got a lot of amazing ideas. And he had an encounter that, So anyway, let's get on to some encounters. I'm sorry for taking up your time. I want you guys to think about these things. We need to be more aware. And I don't think that the encounters are great. The encounters actually give us something to look at and theorize about, because we can compare encounters, right? But the fact that if someone has an amazing set of encounters, let's say he has an encounter every week and this and that, all he's doing is having people come on and share their encounters, or he's narrating their encounters, or I don't know, let's just be politically correct, they are respected because for some reason their encounters are graphic and violent and this and that, and unbelievably, you can't touch it with a stick because it was so amazing. It was such an amazing encounter, Jeff. I never heard something like it. What are we gonna do? What was it? Tell me what it said. Oh my God. To me, it sounds like, I don't know, fodder, fake. I'd rather hear some guy tell me, Jeff, I don't think this even fits on your channel, but this is what I had. Listen to that and be like, dude, that's a terrifying encounter because you just actually saw something that doesn't exist, that's we're told doesn't exist. Rather than hear, I saw a Dogman fly out of the frickin' air on a glider, eating children with rainbows coming out of its ass. You know, there's just too many far-fetched things. These things are real. I know what I saw. Y'all know what you saw. Let's get into some encounters. Today's first encounter is one of those encounters that once I heard it or read it, I immediately remembered it. It's just one of those things that sticks with you. You guys probably know what I'm talking about, so let's get into it. During my summer jobs off from college, I had a job working on a ranch, where my only regular duty was to drive around and monitor the grounds, making sure that wild animals kept their distance from the livestock. The property was spread out across many acres, and sometimes that made it challenging work. Sometimes there would be one other guy around my age, Jamie, who would be assigned to a certain section. There was this one afternoon when Jamie and I were eating lunch together that he told me about a mysterious sighting he had earlier that morning. He claimed that he had seen something standing on two legs, and at first glimpse thought it was a brown bear. However, he was aware that brown bears were not native to the region. Additionally, he said its legs were bent at its knees in a way that was very much like the hind legs of a dog, though he admitted his vision of the lower body was impaired due to it standing behind a fence. If it weren't for the fact that he was all the way across the field behind the opposite fence, he would have been much more intimidated. Jamie said it didn't create any noise of any kind during the initial sighting. By the time he reached for his binoculars and raised them to his eyes, the strange animal was no longer there. I was not one of those people who would immediately shut down the possibility of strange occurrence, but back then I had never before heard of a cryptid that people commonly refer to as Dogman. Therefore, I leaned much toward the idea that there had to be a reasonable explanation. I had sort of forgotten about the whole story until a few weeks later when I saw something utterly peculiar running across the field. The speed of whatever this thing was astonishing. Before that moment, I didn't know any living organism on Earth was capable of moving at a speed like that, especially on two legs. I'm not at all certain, but if I had to estimate, I'd say it was moving at least 45 miles an hour. I couldn't make out what it was carrying, but it looked to be either prey or perhaps even its offspring. That was as far as the sighting went. The following day, when I met with Jamie at lunchtime, I told him about what I had seen. I have to say that it was nice to know that someone else had seen this thing. Otherwise, I think I would have had a much harder time coming to terms with it. Jamie and I both agreed that we should tell the owner as soon as possible. We thought it would be best to do it together, so it would sound much more credible. When we approached the owner, Marv, we were surprised to hear from him that he had also seen that thing before. However, it had been years since he had a sighting. That was when he revealed to us that this mysterious creature was the primary reason he started having workers patrol the grounds. He said that there were times when he would find dead livestock that nothing had taken the time to consume. He said that it was as if this thing enjoyed the act of killing, and will do so even when it's not hungry. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The way he had talked about it was as if he was dealing with nothing more than a pack of aggressive wolves or something. It was like he had totally accepted that there are real monsters in existence. So what's the point of getting all worked up about it? Now that this thing was back, Marv equipped us with pistols that he wanted us to shoot into the air if we were ever to spot the creature again. I was never a big fan of guns, but I'll admit that it made me feel a lot safer having this thing on me while knowing this creature was in the area. I was so freaked out about the idea of seeing this thing up close that I was beginning to wonder whether I should ask for a raise. The speed at which I saw this thing move made it crystal clear that this thing was the ultimate predator. I didn't doubt that it could sneak up on me at any time, and that made me paranoid enough to where I was constantly looking in all directions. I have to say it was pretty exhausting. If it truly did get the enjoyment from the act of killing, what was to stop it from killing one of us? A couple of weeks passed without either of us spotting this mysterious creature. It wouldn't be until I heard Jamie fire off not one but 2 gunshots that I knew the creature had returned. Feeling a responsibility to provide backup, I raced toward the area where I thought I heard the gunshots coming from. When I spotted Jamie, he was using his t-shirt to bandage his upper left arm. When I asked him what had happened, he explained to me that he was crouched over the body of a murdered lamb, and the creature came out of nowhere and took a swipe at him. He immediately fired a shot into the air, but when the creature barely budged, he fired a second shot, this time toward the creature. Although he missed, it was enough to scare the creature off. When I took a peek at the wound, I was surprised to see they were a lot thinner than I had expected. He said that it was still standing several feet away from him, and it wasn't close enough to dig too deep into his flesh. However, it was still enough to warrant immediate bandage. He had brought me over to where the mutilated lamb was. Even though its bloody mess, it looked as though the creature had only taken a few bites from the corpse before running off. So I suppose it didn't always kill just to have fun. Maybe it had heard Jamie coming and stepped out of sight before Jamie noticed it. Jamie confirmed the massive size of this beast, and I remember him saying how he for sure thought he was going to die. He believed that if he hadn't had that pistol, there would have been no way he would be here to tell me about the incident. When we went to tell Marv about it, the man was pretty shaken by what had happened to Jamie. He seemed very discouraged by it. He got on the phone and dialed the police right in front of us, although I noticed how he didn't mention anything about Jamie's injuries. We watched from a distance as one patrol car rolled up to Marv's home. Jamie and I just sat there for a while observing, waiting to see if anyone needed us for anything. It wasn't long before a couple more police cars rolled behind the first one. But none of the officers ever approached us with any questions. It was later that day that Marv informed Jamie and I that he was going to have to give us a paid leave until further notice. Believe it or not, those paychecks kept coming in until the end of summer, without either of us having to work another day. I've always wondered what went on there while we were absent. Could it have gotten the authorities involved in this mystery in the past? I never saw it with my own eyes, but Jamie told me that he once saw a heavy-duty military-grade vehicle pull onto the long road that leads to Marv's farm. I can't imagine what else something of that grade would have been needed for on the farm. Additionally, could there have been more than one of those creatures residing near the property? Marv never mentioned seeing more than one at a time, but he was also very vague on the subject when we spoke about it. It seemed to me that he had a difficult time accepting that these creatures are real regardless of how long he had known about them. I've never seen a Bigfoot or any other cryptid, but given that I know with 100% certainty that these dogmen exist, I don't doubt that there are all sorts of weird things running around out there. Tonight's final encounter. My name's John, and I had an encounter with what I believe to be a dogman when I was 12 years old on a summer vacation with my family. I grew up in the Milwaukee area, and it was tradition for us for a long time to go up to Minicoa for a week every summer. If you are not familiar with Minicoa, it is a pleasant and quiet lake town in the northern part of the state. My little brother was 10 years younger than me, so at the time, he couldn't participate in a whole lot. He'd usually stay at the resort and do stuff with my mom while my dad and I would go fishing. I can't remember the river's name because it had been so long since I had been there, but the locals knew it had plenty of fish. Dad and I always had good luck when we'd cast out into the river. Usually we'd catch enough panfish to be able to fry some up fresh for every meal we had, aside from what we ate at the restaurant. I remember how on this particular day we were fishing near a bridge that paved the way for traffic and was used regularly. Sometimes you would see people fishing off the side of the bridge. On this day, though, Dad and I were the only ones there. I would normally expect this species to be nocturnal. There was something about this animal that we saw that day that didn't seem to match up with how bright the sun was at the time. Of course, this is just my take, but I do remember my dad also mentioning something along those lines. So we were having a normal day fishing when suddenly this entity on two legs came out of the thicket across the river and just stood there looking at us. It didn't make a single noise while it stared at us. It was so creepy because it didn't budge from eye contact. I know it sounds dumb, but it felt as if it was engaged in a staring contest with us, an intimidation tactic, I'm sure. It kind of felt as though this thing hypnotized both my dad and I, but the more I think about it, the more I think that it was mostly because we had never seen anything like this before. I get what people mean when they say their brains were trying to come off from all sorts of logical answers from something that, at the time, is incomprehensible. It was an awkward feeling staring at something that appears to be straight out of a storybook. The river isn't too wide, maybe somewhere around 20 yards. It's been so long since I've been there, and it's hard to give a proper estimate. Anyhow, it wasn't like the entity was right in my face or anything, but I was able to see its entire physique from where I stood. I've heard quite a few people say from the head reminds them of a German Shepherd. Even though there are clear differences, I do see what they mean by that statement. Also, I found the colors on its fur to be similar to that of a German Shepherd, but there was something about its face that made me feel like this thing was part human. I can't say why I felt that, but there was just something about its presence that made it seem like someone was watching and judging us. It was like it was wondering whether it was worth the hassle to cross the river and kill us or something. This creature was tall, definitely much taller than me at the time. I didn't think I was even 5 feet at that age. I asked my dad, and he claims that it was definitely over 6 feet, but he also said it was hunched over, so it was difficult to judge, but even hunched over, he said this creature was well over 6 feet. He also agrees that there was something oddly human about this creature, like it was more intelligent than any officially recognized mammal, including apes and dolphins. There was something about its hands that seemed so oddly shaped to me. It was kind of like they were too long and gangly in proportion of the rest of its figure. I see why people refer to it as Dogman, as there are some similarities. Still, it also has features that I have difficulty relating to anything else I had ever imagined. The entity just kept staring at us until my dad quietly said, "Let's gather our stuff and head back to the condo." As you might have suspected, that was the last time we fished that river, and to tell you the truth, we never did much fishing after that. We didn't speak about it much after that either, but it seemed pretty clear that both of us were too disturbed to spend much time in nature after that strange incident. I'll admit that seeing that creature has ruined the great outdoors for me. It's not like I haven't gone outdoor adventuring since. I've gone on many. However, I always have this weird feeling like something is watching me or possibly stalking me. It's truly amazing how much of an impact these things can make on your brain. For the longest time, I didn't want to admit it, but by this point, I'm confident that I suffered from some sort of PTSD. And to think, that was only from seeing one of these creatures. I can't imagine how terrifying it would be if we had been chased by one. I can't end today's upload like that, so let's just do one last encounter for y'all. It was only 5 years ago that I had what I hope to be the scariest event of my life. I lived in Texas my entire life, and I've spent a ton of time hiking through its dense, desolate wild. But I had never heard of anything like what I had seen that day. I don't want to reveal the exact location of this place because I am sure there are at least a few people out there who will want to visit and attempt to lure this creature in. I'm a big believer in karma, and the last thing I want is to enable someone to become prey. It was an overcast day with cool temperatures, and I had decided to go out on a solo walk through this beautiful canyon area that is a little over 20 miles from my apartment. My whole life I've dealt with depression. Luckily, I found that the best way to combat it is to walk through nature. I make sure to do it at least 3 times a week. Nothing out of the ordinary has ever happened, so this incident is earth-shattering for me. Just like any other day, I was walking normally when suddenly jumped at the sound of a gunshot. I walked up a small hill to my left, and when I got to the top, I immediately noticed a man dressed in casual clothing sitting on the ground as though he had fallen. He had a pistol pointed at an animal that I couldn't identify. At first, I thought it was a very tall, lean bear. But then I noticed how long its arms were, and that it was walking on 2 legs. Also, its legs were shaped differently from what you see on a bear. Anyhow, Texas isn't exactly known for bear maulings, so there was nothing about this situation that seemed at all usual. Even though the man and the beast were about 100 yards away, I could still see long pointed nails along with opposable thumbs. This creature didn't have paws like a normal animal. I could tell by the body language of this creature that it wanted to eat this man. Although the man was fully grown, he paled in size comparison to this creature. It had to have weighed at least 4 times as much as this man did. I felt obligated to help, but I'm a 27-year-old woman, just over 5 feet tall. The last thing I want was for this creature to notice me and realize I was a better option for the meal. I hadn't seen it run at that point, but I could tell by its bulging muscles that it would be incredibly fast. Had it decided to sprint in my direction, there was a gulch that separated me from them, but I doubted that it would be a major obstacle for this creature. I watched the man as he frantically tried reloading his weapon. At least that's how it appeared to me. My adrenaline was pumping so hard as my brain tried to think of a way to help. I so badly wished that there was a way that I could help this guy and distract this creature just long enough for the person to make their escape. When this dog-like creature looked as though it was about to lunge at the guy, I don't know what came over me, but I suddenly shouted, "Hey!" in their direction, just as I feared the creature's head and ears immediately perked up and stared right at me. The speed at which it moved toward the edge of the cliff to get a better look at me was staggering. It was as if this creature glided rather than walked or ran. It was at that moment that I knew I had to get out of here. Even the man, who had just gotten up from the ground, was now waving his hand toward me, telling me to get the hell out of the area as quick as possible. It was as he raised his weapon and shot another bullet into the back of the creature that I turned and ran as fast as I could back toward where I had parked my car. My car was at least a mile away, and I just continued to run. I heard 2 or 3 more gunshots coming from the distance. I also heard a noise that was sort of like a roar, but unlike any roar I had ever heard before. There was something undeniably human about it, as if it was also capable of speaking proper dialogue. Not sure that makes sense, but that's the idea it gave me. But I don't know how else to describe it. It was all just so incredibly bizarre. By the time I made it back to my car, there was a calmness in the air. I can't say whether it was because I felt safe or it was the energy of the environment. Maybe that energy had changed. I'm a spiritual person, and I tend to believe in the latter. That all happened before I knew how the government does all it can do to conceal the existence of these creatures, so I regularly scour the local papers and internet for any mention of what I saw that day. I suppose I was hoping to come across some interview or something with the man who I saw shoot at this creature. Now I know that even if he made it out of there alive, mainstream publications would never, ever publish his story. If they did, by some miracle, they would write the story in a way that would make the man sound crazy. I've done so much investigating on cryptids over the years, and whenever mainstream media publicizes a story on those subjects, there is always some undertone that makes it sound like a joke. Anyway, I sure hope that the man did make it out of there alive, but sometimes I feel, though, it was close to impossible. I sure wish there was something more I could have done that day, but it felt that all I would do was increase the chances of there being 2 victims rather than 1. That, my friends, is definitely a hard circumstance to be put in. I made a statement about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, about where that Canadian young woman was being attacked by coyotes, supposedly, and some hikers had walked by and saw it happening, and they didn't help. Now, I did say I would help because why? Well, it's coyotes. They weigh max 50 pounds, and that's giving them some weight. So I'd probably just pick up a stick and start swinging it like Babe Ruth and cracking them in the skull pieces. But would I do that with a Dogman? I don't know. I probably would run just like this woman would and just pray for the guy. To be honest, I don't know. I really don't. And that's a predicament I hope I'm never put in. I hope I never see one of these creatures again, to be honest with you. But if I do, at least I know what I'll be looking at, right? All right, guys, I hope everyone enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I was not insulting anyone that fell victim to believing that that photo was true and real. That was not my intent. My intent was to show you guys that there are shady people out there that want to just either make us look crazier than we are or benefit on the belief system that we know these creatures exist. So, who knows? Anyway, I want to thank you all. And if you guys enjoyed those last 3 encounters, those are all written and researched by Tom Lyons and narrated and produced by me. And they are in his audiobooks done by me, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3. So if you liked them, go check out the books. They're definitely worth it. The audiobooks and the physical copy. I have both. So, all right. Stay safe. May the Great Spirit watch out for us all. May he guide us down that path that we call life.